We stand at a pivotal moment in history. The way we lead organizations, teams, and even ourselves is being transformed not by opinion, not by hierarchy, but by data. Leadership is no longer about charisma alone, it's about clarity, insight, and foresight. And the best way to lead in today's world is to be data-led. Let me share 6 key perspectives on what it truly means to embrace this mindset. Leadership has always been measured by the ability to respond under pressure, to rise to the occasion when circumstances demanded decisive action. But in a world where change accelerates daily, reacting is no longer enough. By the time you respond, and the opportunity has already passed, and the damage may already be done, to truly lead, you must anticipate, and that is where data transforms leadership. Data provides visibility into the unseen, the subtle shifts, the hidden signals that reveal where disruption is coming from. Think of it as a radar that detects storms before they form, or a telescope that shows you patterns too distant for the naked eye. Anticipation, fueled by data, is not about fortune telling, it's about equipping yourself with a deeper, more accurate understanding of reality. Consider how organizations once planned strategy, annual reports, quarterly forecasts, and sporadic market research were the primary tools. Decisions were often based on what had already happened, not what was unfolding in the present. Leaders relied on gut instinct, experience, and occasionally luck, but instinct, however seasoned, cannot compete with the scale and speed of real-time insights. Imagine leading a global company and having access to predictive analytics that highlight shifting customer preferences before they become trends. Imagine monitoring global supply chains and seeing disruptions weeks in advance, giving you time to adapt while competitors scramble. This is not guesswork, it is leadership rooted in anticipation. The ability to anticipate does not only apply to markets and products, it extends to people. Within every organization, employees leave behind a trail of digital signals, how they collaborate, how engaged they feel, what motivates them. A leader who pays attention to these signals can see disengagement before it becomes attrition or innovation potential before it goes untapped. Anticipation in this context means creating conditions for people to thrive long before issues escalate into crisis. Leaders who understand this are not surprised by turnover or resistance. They are already shaping outcomes before they manifest. But there is another layer to anticipation that is even more profound foresight about society itself. Data does not only reflect what your customers or employees are doing today, it reveals how entire cultures are shifting, from the way younger generations interact with technology to the subtle signals in consumer behavior that forecast ethical priorities, sustainability concerns, or shifts in trust. Leaders who harness this intelligence are not playing catch up with change. They are moving in sync with it. They are able to design strategies that feel not only relevant but inevitable. The greatest misconception about anticipation is that it is passive, a matter of waiting and watching. In reality, anticipation powered by data is active leadership. It means continuously asking better questions. What is changing faster than we expected? What signals matter most? What are we blind to? Leading through anticipation means refusing to be caught off guard. It is about building an organization that thrives not because it reacts quickly, but because it is already aligned with the future. When you are data-led, you stop chasing the present, and you start creating what comes next. For a long time, culture was described as something intangible, something you could feel but never measure. Leaders spoke about it in lofty terms, as if it was a spirit that lingered in the hallways or an energy that only revealed itself when people came together. But in reality, culture is not mysterious at all. It leaves evidence everywhere. The way employees communicate in emails, the pace at which they respond to messages, the willingness they show to collaborate across teams, the level of trust expressed in feedback, all of these are signals, and all of them can be captured, analyzed, and understood. Data has given us the ability to not only describe culture, but to actively shape it. Leadership in this era is about moving beyond storytelling to evidence-based design of culture. Consider what happens when a leader says, "We value collaboration." In the past, this would remain a statement on a wall, a phrase in an employee handbook, or a line in a speech. Today, you can look at collaboration patterns across digital platforms and measure whether teams are truly working together or operating in silos. You can see which departments engage in knowledge sharing and which guard information like territory. With that visibility, leadership becomes more than symbolic, it becomes actionable. If collaboration is weak, leaders can redesign workflows, introduce new incentives, or create spaces, both physical and digital, that encourage better interaction. Data allows you to test cultural intentions against cultural reality. But culture is not only about how people work together, it is also about how they feel. Engagement scores, attrition data, sentiment analysis, and even subtle patterns like meeting overload or burnout signals can all reveal the true emotional climate of an organization. Leaders who ignore these signs risk discovering discontent too late when talent has already walked out the door. Leaders who embrace them, however, can intervene early, adjusting workloads, addressing inequities, or providing new opportunities for growth. Culture becomes a dynamic system, constantly monitored and adjusted, rather than something that drifts unchecked. The danger, of course, is treating culture like a numbers game. Leadership is not about reducing people to metrics, but about using metrics to unlock human potential. Data should be seen as a compass, not a cage. The purpose is not to control employees, but to give leaders insight into how to better support them, empower them, and create the conditions where creativity flourishes. When people see that data is used to improve their experience rather than monitor them, trust grows and culture strengthens. In this way, data does not replace culture, it amplifies it. It makes visible what was invisible and gives leaders the tools to guide it with precision. The old saying was that culture eats strategy for breakfast. That is still true, but now data is the ingredient that determines what that breakfast tastes like. Leaders who understand this don't just declare their values, they measure them, refine them, and bring them to life. Culture shaped by data becomes not just a talking point, but a competitive advantage. In the past, leadership was often defined by centralization. Decisions flowed from the top down, and authority was concentrated in the hands of a few. This model worked when the world moved slowly, when organizations could afford to deliberate for months before making a choice. But in today's fast-moving environment, centralization creates bottlenecks. By the time information rises to the top, gets analyzed, and is turned into a directive, the situation on the ground has already shifted. The future of leadership is not about being the sole decision maker. It is about enabling decisions to be made everywhere by everyone at the speed of change. This is where being data-led transforms the very architecture of leadership. When data becomes accessible across an organization, it empowers individuals at every level to act with clarity and confidence. Imagine a frontline employee with real-time insights into customer behavior. Instead of waiting for management to approve a new approach, they can immediately adjust their interaction, creating better outcomes in the moment. Similarly, a team lead equipped with transparent performance data doesn't need to wait for quarterly reviews to make improvements. They can pivot instantly. Democratizing decision-making is not about losing control. It is about creating an environment where the right people can act at the right time with the right information. This shift changes the role of the leader. No longer is leadership about having all the answers. Instead, it becomes about creating the conditions where answers can emerge organically. The leader designs systems where data flows freely, insights are shared openly, and decisions are guided by evidence rather than hierarchy. In such a culture, innovation is no longer reserved for strategy meetings. It happens in real time across every corner of the organization. People feel ownership because they are trusted to act and they rise to the responsibility. Of course, democratization does not mean chaos. It requires structure, but a new kind of structure, one that balances autonomy with alignment. Data provides the common language that makes this possible. When everyone has access to the same facts, debates become about interpretation and strategy, not about whose opinion carries more weight. Disagreements can be resolved by returning to the numbers, and decisions can be tested, tracked, and refined. Leaders who understand this shift move from being gatekeepers of knowledge to being architects of systems that distribute intelligence. The benefits of this approach ripple outward. Organizations that democratize decision-making become faster, more resilient, and more adaptable. They are less vulnerable to single points of failure because leadership is not confined to a single office or title. They attract talent that values empowerment, creativity, and trust. And most importantly, they remain relevant in a world where speed and agility are everything. The future will not belong to leaders who cling to control. It will belong to those who use data to unleash the collective intelligence of their people. To be data-led in this sense is not simply to make better decisions yourself. It is to enable everyone around you to become a better decision maker too. There is a common fear that technology, and especially artificial intelligence, will one day replace human leaders. This fear is misplaced. The real opportunity is not in competing with machines, but in augmenting ourselves through them. Leaders who understand this shift will not see AI as a threat, but as an extension of their own capabilities, a way to amplify their intelligence and extend their vision. To be data-led in this age means embracing augmentation, not to surrender authority to algorithms, but to partner with them in order to make better, faster, and more informed decisions. Think about what leadership has always required: the ability to see patterns, to make sense of complexity, to weigh competing priorities, and to chart a path forward. These are not disappearing, they are becoming more demanding. The sheer volume of information available today is overwhelming for any single individual. But augmented leaders are not overwhelmed. They know how to harness tools that process billions of data points, filter noise, and surface meaningful insights. The role of the leader becomes less about absorbing all the details personally and more about asking the right questions, questions that algorithms can help answer with clarity and precision. This creates a profound shift in how leaders spend their time. Instead of drowning in spreadsheets or waiting for reports, they can focus on higher order challenges, shaping strategy, aligning people, inspiring vision. Imagine a leader walking into a boardroom already armed with predictive models that reveal not just how the market is performing today, but how it might evolve tomorrow. Or picture a leader engaging with their workforce, not only with intuition, but with real-time insights into engagement, sentiment, and collaboration dynamics. This is not about replacing instinct. It is about grounding instinct in evidence. Augmentation bridges the gap between human judgment and machine intelligence. Yet augmentation is not just technical, it is philosophical. It requires humility. Leaders must be willing to accept that they do not always have the best answers, that a machine might detect patterns they would miss, and that insights can come from unexpected sources. At the same time, they must also recognize the limits of data, ensuring that ethical judgment, empathy, and vision remain at the center of leadership. An algorithm can tell you what people are doing, but it cannot always explain why they are doing it, or how they should be led in a way that honors human values. This is where the augmented leader shines, by blending the precision of data with the wisdom of humanity. The future will not be defined by leaders who reject technology or by those who blindly follow it. It will be defined by leaders who know how to collaborate with it, to use it as a partner in shaping decisions, and to create new opportunities for growth. To lead in a data-led world is to accept that the greatest leaders will not be superhuman, they will be augmented humans, able to see further, think faster, and act with greater confidence than ever before. Trust has always been the cornerstone of leadership. People follow leaders not simply because of their position, but because they believe in their judgment, their fairness, and their vision. In a data-driven world, this foundation of trust becomes even more critical. Numbers and algorithms may seem objective, but if the people you lead do not trust the data you use, they will resist your decisions, question your motives, and ultimately disengage. To be truly data-led, a leader must understand that trust is the currency that makes data meaningful. Without it, the most sophisticated dashboards or predictive models are nothing more than decorations on a screen. The challenge is that data often feels distant or opaque to those outside of technical circles. Employees may see charts and graphs, but wonder where the numbers came from, how they were collected, or whether they tell the full story. If leaders simply present data as unquestionable truth, they risk alienating the very people they want to inspire. The alternative is transparency. A data-led leader explains not just the conclusion, but the process. They show how insights are generated, what assumptions were made, and where the limitations lie. This does not make them appear weaker, it makes them more credible. People are far more likely to trust a leader who admits the uncertainty in a forecast than one who pretends to have absolute certainty. Trust also depends on how data is used. If people believe that numbers are being selectively chosen to support predetermined decisions, confidence evaporates. If employees sense that data is being weaponized to monitor, punish, or control, they will resist. But when data is used to empower, to identify opportunities, to highlight strengths as much as weaknesses, it creates a sense of fairness and alignment. Leaders must be careful stewards of data, not just for strategic accuracy, but for moral legitimacy. The question is not only what does the data show, but also what does it mean for the people affected by it. Ethics plays a central role here. In an age where algorithms shape hiring, promotions, or even customer experiences, the risk of bias and misuse is real. A leader who blindly trusts the output of a system without questioning its design or its fairness abdicates responsibility. A true data-led leader takes ownership, ensuring that the insights they rely on are both accurate and just. By openly addressing issues of bias, privacy, and responsibility, leaders reinforce that data is not a replacement for ethics, but a tool that must be guided by it. Ultimately, trust is built through consistency. When leaders consistently use data to make fair, transparent, and ethical decisions, people begin to see data not as an abstract tool, but as a shared foundation for progress. They learn that behind every chart is a leader committed to truth, accountability, and respect. And once that trust is established, data becomes more than numbers. It becomes a language of alignment, a way for leaders and their teams to move forward together with confidence. Leadership has always been about more than managing the present. It is about creating the future. Yet too often, leaders fall into the trap of using data only as a mirror, reflecting what has already happened. Reports, metrics, and performance dashboards become rearview mirrors that keep leaders fixated on the past. But the real power of data lies not in hindsight, but in foresight. To be data-led is to use information not just to measure results, but to design possibilities. It is about building organizations that are not optimized for yesterday, but prepared for tomorrow. The first step in designing for the future is recognizing that data is more than static numbers. It is a living map of human behavior, technological shifts, and market dynamics. Every purchase, click, or interaction leaves a signal. When aggregated and analyzed, these signals reveal trends that stretch far beyond quarterly targets. They uncover how customer expectations are evolving, how industries are converging, and how societal values are shifting. Leaders who pay attention to these patterns can see what is coming long before competitors do. Instead of waiting for disruption, they position their organizations to shape it. But designing for the future is not about prediction alone. It is about imagination grounded in evidence. Used. Data can show you the direction of change, but it is the leader's role to envision how that change can be turned into opportunity. For example, noticing that younger generations value sustainability is one thing. Designing new business models that integrate sustainability into every stage of production is another. Observing that customers are moving toward digital experiences is one thing. Creating entirely new digital first ecosystems is another. Data provides the signals, but leadership transforms those signals into strategies that set the course for tomorrow. This approach requires courage. The temptation will always be to optimize for the present, to squeeze a little more efficiency from existing systems, to polish old models rather than invent new ones. But leadership that is truly data-led resists that temptation. It understands that short-term gains often come at the expense of long-term relevance. By using data to design for the future, leaders invest in resilience, adaptability, and growth that can withstand the inevitable shocks of change. They are willing to sacrifice immediate comfort for enduring impact. Most importantly, designing for the future with data is about responsibility. Leaders are not only accountable to shareholders, they are accountable to employees, customers, and society. The choices they make today, guided by data, will shape the kind of world we all inhabit tomorrow. This is why leaders must not only ask, what does the data say, but also what future are we creating by acting on it? A data-led vision is not just about staying competitive. It is about ensuring that progress aligns with human values and aspirations. In the end, leadership is not about predicting the future. It is about preparing for it, shaping it, and inspiring others to move toward it with confidence. Data is the blueprint, but leaders are the architects. And those who design with foresight will not merely survive disruption, they will define what comes next.